And we're live.
We're live
We're
recording.
live in action from Denver, Colorado and LA, California. Is that where you are?
Yes,
All
I'm in LA.
right. Hi, guys. Welcome to our podcast. Happy New Year's Eve, everybody.
Happy New Year's Eve.
Happy New
And
Year's Eve.
we're not gonna tell you who our special guest is for the whole time. No, I'm just kidding.
We have a very special guest today. We have Jordan with us from LA, and we actually met him through YouTube. He has a lot of really cool YouTube videos that he put out there, and he was really brave and he put his story out there and helped a lot of people. Like everybody that I talked to, they all mentioned Jordan, that Jordan's videos helped them. And so we're really excited to talk to him today. So everybody, welcome Jordan.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. Thanks for being here with us today.
I'm very excited for this. You guys do great work. I don't know you guys. You remember Tony? My aunt actually reached out to you, my auntie.
Oh, she did. She was one of the first ones.
Yeah, she loves it. So I'm excited for her to hear this one as well.
Oh, yeah,
she's a big fan of this podcast.
Awesome.
Every time an episode comes out, it's like I'm like, Auntie, hey, did you listen to it? And we're talking like we're on the phone for like an hour plus talking about it. Just
cool.
it's been really good.
I love that it's opening up conversations for us too. Like at Christmas time, people were like, wow, talking about this and that, things that we would never talk about before openly. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's just the way you put it, because I mean you were in the church for a long time, 10 plus years, and you have a perspective and a view on the church that we all share the exact same, like we all went through the exact same thing, so it's like the way you put it in, like in your episodes, it's just like I told my auntie, she explains it so well. She puts it together so well, the way you talk about it, the words you use, like even though we're not really saying the name of the church, but everybody knows who it is.
Right. You can't hide.
You can't, exactly. So it's been really cool. It's for the past like year and a half, I really haven't put out any videos, but this has definitely revived my fervor to help people. Because I get emails every now and then. I'll get a DM on Instagram or something like that, and sometimes I got that feeling like I kind of just want to put this in the past. But the more I talk about it, the more I'm able to know that I'm helping people. It's like therapy to me. That's what it is. It's therapy to me. It feels healing to be able to just talk about it and not just put it away in the past, but to actually express your feelings and talking about your experiences and things like that. I think it's a healing process that I'm going to be going through for a long time. Fortunately, I was in this place for
lives, right?
I was in this place for 15 years. So
right.
it's going to be.
Tell us about your story. Tell us for people that don't know.
I'm excited to have you on because I feel like you have such a unique experience.
Oh, yeah.
Not that many people can say. So I'm like so happy to have you on. I'm so excited to hear.
Yeah. So
how old were you when you were baptized?
I was like 5 or 6 when I was baptized. So I mean, from the time I was like, 5, 6 years old up until my early 20s, becoming a group leader in the LA branch. I mean, there's so much that happened in between. Earlier this morning, I was just trying to type up some notes, because there's just so much. Like, I don't want to miss anything, It's just so much that happens. I mean, it all started because we used to live in Inglewood. That's where my family's from. That's where they've been, in the 80s and the 90s. We're from Inglewood. We're shopping. We're doing some Sunday shopping. Me, my grandmother and my brother. We're doing some Sunday shopping. We're at the swap meet. We're just chilling. It's a regular day, and all of a sudden, this lady changed the course of history. She approached like we're about to get in the car. We were about to leave, and we're about to be on our way. This lady starts running and approaches us with her own 2 kids. She had 2 daughters. And she started preaching, right? She started preaching to my grandmother. And we were standing there for maybe like 10, 15 minutes. Me and my brother were talking to her two daughters. They're giving us like these balloons and stuff. They're pretty cool people. And yeah, that really set everything off. Once that happened, we would start first. We didn't go to the church right away, like how it is now. We first started going because the church was probably like an hour and a half away from where we were. So we started going to their house, and like, what a coincidence! They lived down the street from us.
Huh.
And we started going to this lady's house. And her husband was a deacon in the church, and so we would go there. It was like every night we were going over there. Me and my brother, we're just sitting there. We're playing Nintendo 64 with their daughters, and I just remember my grandmother just being in the kitchen. They're studying the Bible for hours. Hours. We're there all night.
Jordan, did you guys go to church before that you remember?
I mean,
Yeah.
we actually did go to some churches. It was like, I recall, with it being so long ago, I recall going to the Great Western Forum and going to one of those like televised churches.
Wow.
It was one of those like big ones, like, because we lived across the street from the Great Western Forum, like where the Lakers used to play.
Okay.
We used to live like right there. And we went there a couple of times.
Okay.
And I just remember, like, I saw a kid playing his like Game Boy, and I was like, I want to play my Game Boy too. Oh, whatever. But continuing on, one Saturday it was like, all right, we're going to the church, and we're driving. We're going out in Timbuktu. We're going. I don't know where we're going. We're driving. I'm a kid. I'm just sitting in the back. I have my little Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I'm just. I'm just a kid, we don't know where we're going. And I recall my grandmother saying, she didn't like, she was like, where are we going? Like, where are we? The church was located in Sunland, California at the time, which is it's not like a city, it's more like a smaller, like a smaller town type thing. So we get there. And it was after first service. I remember it was early afternoon. It was like around 11. It was like 12 o'clock. We got there, and we were greeted by the deacon who's been studying with my grandmother. He was at the entrance, like waiting for us, like hands behind his back, everything. Just hey, I've been waiting for you. The church was very small back then. It was very small. So we got out the car. And it's hard to remember exactly what happened after that, but I meet the children, I meet the other kids there, and then we walk into this room and we're getting baptized. At the time I'm like, okay, like I didn't really know what baptism was. I'm like, 6 years old. I don't really know. I'm just going with the flow.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're getting baptized, and I just I keep hearing the name An Sang Hong, so I'm like, oh, that's how you say God in Chinese or something. Yeah, I didn't know what a Korean was. Mm-hmm. I'm like, all I know is like Jackie Chan and right. Jet Li. So yeah, I kept hearing that name An Sang Hong, and we because at the time you couldn't attend a service without being baptized.
Right.
So as soon as we got there, we got baptized so that we can attend the afternoon worship service. And yeah, I just remember it. The church at the time, it was like 60 to 70 members. It was like 90% Korean, So even like for a short time at that time, the sermons were actually in Korean. They were in Korean, and we had to have an English translator. Because the majority of the church.
What year were you baptized?
That was July of 2003.
Wow. So I think when the church came from Korea to America, didn't it go to New York and then it went to LA first?
It went to LA first.
But LA is different than Sunland?
No. So Sunland that was first LA. That's the first LA.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So
Right,
first
right,
so from Korea, they, from east to west, furthest
right,
west was LA. So
right.
to fulfill their prophecy, then they came to LA first. They started a house church in Koreatown.
Okay.
And so from Koreatown, they moved to an office church. From the office church in Koreatown, then they moved to an actual church building in Sunland.
So you were part of like pretty much the beginning of
Yeah.
like the church work in America. Don't
Yes.
you think? Yeah,
Yes. So
yeah.
at the time when I joined, it was only LA, like the first LA branch. The San Diego branch was just started as a house church, like they just started, and then New York. Those were like the three main, like only locations of the church at the time.
Right,
So over the years, I saw like the growth and everything,
right.
but yeah, during the church service, like the first service I ever attended, I still remember distinctly because they started speaking Korean at the prayer of our wish was in Korean as well. Everybody was saying in unison, and me and my kid self, I'm like, everybody speaks Chinese. Oh, it was very interesting, very interesting. I had, like I said, I had my Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and I had got rebuked for having them. Like, this is from Satan. Like, oh man, it was, as a kid back then, it was very different. It was very different. From back in those early years, it was it was very strict during service times. Like, it was very strict. You couldn't. I mean, you had to sit up straight. We had our own separate room in the back for the children. You had to sit up straight. You had to take notes. Um, it was like you're telling these, like, children, even down to like the toddlers and the babies, like they have to stay up. They have to be quiet. It's you're asking a lot from children.
Right. They're in their view, they want the children to worship God. Like
Yes,
to actually and to learn how to worship God from the time that they're born.
so you can get your blessings.
Right. It's
Children
for
have to
the
get your blessings.
children's blessing. So it really
Yes.
puts a lot of pressure on the parents to like be strict to the children. And also the teachers, because the teachers are in charge of the children. And if the children are acting up, then the teachers are looked
Yes.
down
Oh
on.
yeah. They'll get rebuked if
Hmm.
the children aren't. So we it was one phrase where it was just beat into our heads as children. I still remember it. I mean, it applies to all members of the church, but it was, hold on to your crown.
Mm.
I remember that being like just engraved in our brains, like, hold on to your crown, like from when we were children. you know don't lose your spot in heaven. Hold on to your crown. And that was the basis of, from being a kid. That was the basis of, in my young faith. Hold on to your crown. I want, even as a kid, I'm gonna do it. I have this pressure on me now to hold on to my crown.
Yeah.
Because the big thing was, you want to be part of the 144,000. And they were teaching that to everybody. It didn't matter how old you were. They were saying, oh, even babies can be a part of the one. You remember that? They were saying even babies can be a part of the 144,000.
Right.
Like, okay, my logic is not like fully developed. I
Right.
but I could, okay, whatever.
Right.
But that's how
That was
everybody
the
is.
goal. That was the
Yeah,
goal, to be
that was the
144,000,
goal.
especially back in the very beginning. I feel like as
Especially,
time went on, it's sort of like,
it kind of
I
got
don't know.
diluted. That message got
Right. It got
diluted.
diluted. That's a perfect word for it. Yep.
you know. But back then it was like, it was even on our new songbooks, only for the
Right.
144,000. Like, that was even.
Right.
And then later on, they revised it, and they took that verbiage off the new songbook. But that was a thing. I remember that being the message over and over and over. Hold on to your crown. You want to be 144,000. That. And when I was in, there was, there were more than 144,000 members already from the Korean member base. There were a lot, and a little bit of the I think it was maybe a little bit over like 300,000 or something like that, with the majority of them being in Korea. So I just, yeah, back then it's kind of euphoric thinking about it, thinking about that time. I was I was introduced into Korean culture. It was, it's weird because back then, well, to give you like perspective now, like from as recently as when I left the church in 2018, the kids they were on a strict like curriculum. They were on a strict regimen. You know, class time, you know, all this stuff, you know, watching the church videos. Back then, the only real like strict time was during service. In between, I was bringing movies from home. We were watching Pokemon. We were watching, you know, we
Wow,
were
that would never happen now.
yeah, we were watching like Scooby Doo, like
Right.
They kind of left you guys alone after.
yeah. Like in between, it was cool. Like, you know, you had the adult members, of course. There were like preaching practice and all that stuff. But us kids, like,
You're having
um,
fun
you know,
with your
we were
friends.
like,
You're hanging out with your friends.
yeah, we're hanging out with our friends.
Yeah.
With, you know, some restrictions are still there, of course. Like,
Right.
bring anything, you know, any toy, no toys or no video games or nothing like that. But we were actually allowed to, like, you know, watch some cool cartoons in between, which would never happen.
Right. Right.
They would never allow that today.
No.
But while I say it was a, still a traumatic experience being a kid in the church, you know, even with like the nightmares, like I would have so many nightmares, even as a kid. The pastor at the time had us thinking the world was gonna end tomorrow. Like that's how he preached. It was yeah, it was very traumatic,
Scary.
very
Yeah.
scary because I would just over and over and over I would have these
Mm.
these dreams as a 6, 7 year old now. Um yeah, it's it's crazy because no kid really goes through that. Like, children are supposed to have a normal childhood. You know, they're supposed to, you know, go to school, do their homework when they come home. You know, spend time with their family, play outside with the kids, and have a normal life. But just looking back at it, talking about it, even as I was typing up my notes earlier today and last night, just thinking how I was robbed of
Mm.
most of that. Like I was during holidays, I was put in a separate classroom. I couldn't participate in anything.
Oh,
It
it's
like no matter
Right.
what. Like Halloween, Thanksgiving came around, Christmas came around, Easter. I was put in a separate classroom. I was doing some like other like worksheets or something, you know, math worksheets or something like
While they're
that.
having like a
While
Christmas
they're having
party,
while they're
all
having
your
like pizza
friends,
and,
yeah, ice cream.
so it is definitely it built I mean, even at such a young age, you know, it built a lot, I would say it built a lot of character in me, you know, because
Right.
I was,
You
you know,
endured a lot and
yeah, I
you
endured a lot.
suffered a lot, and now I feel like you can do anything. Look at everything you've been through.
And now I have my 5 year old son, and I'm every day I'm thankful, you know, that he doesn't have to live the life that I did. And not saying that I lived some terrible life, but there's just something children should not go through. Period.
Right.
The 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 mental side of it, you know, is something you shouldn't be teaching children that the world is going to end. You should hold on to your crown. You're being pressured, you know, to become the one, one of the 144,000. That's not something to put on a child.
Do you
That's for
feel like
sure.
as your son gets to the age that you began it, like it's kind of retriggering?
Yeah, yeah.
You're
You know,
seeing his like innocence now, and you're thinking of like what you had to go through with that.
I'm thinking about it now that, you know, he turned 5 back in July, so he's around that same age where I first joined the church, and I think about it so often.
Mm.
So often I look at him, I'm like, just last week where he was opening up Christmas presents, and
Yeah,
it was amazing. I was like, he gets to experience this
yeah.
um, without without feeling that he's disobeying God.
Right. Without
You know,
fear or
without fear.
shame.
So
Mhm.
all that started when, of course, when we first joined the church. That fear, that pressure, the all that started, and it just became more intense as the years went on. Um, moving into like around 2007 to like onwards to like 2010, I was in middle school. And so that was a different time as well. So I'm growing up, I'm getting a little bit older and we're still in the church. And I'm like, I can't listen to music. I can't listen to this other music. So a lot of the times throughout like middle school and high school years, I was in conflict with myself. Because I'm going through puberty. I'm feeling these certain types of hormones. I'm like going through all this stuff. Like I'm
All normal,
transitioning,
totally normal.
normal, and I'm told to suppress everything, everything I am supposed to suppress. I can't do. I can't do anything. It's going to school. Me and my brothers, most nights during the school nights, stayed home, and my grandmother went preaching like every night. It was either we were staying home or we were going to church with her, and we were staying in the church while she was out preaching. That was life. That was life. There were no like vacations. There were no. I mean, every once in a while, we would go to like a theme park. Every once in a while, we would do something fun, and that was fun. That was really fun. Doing those types of things. Go to the movies, all that good stuff. But that was very rare. That was very rare. Most of the nights it was just grandmother's going preaching. All right, we gotta, we're either sitting at home, or we're sitting at church at Zion, just waiting for her to finish. And that was life. I mean, it was just over and over and over. No Sabbaths were missed. No third day worships were missed at all. Like we were there 110%.
Jordan, is your brother older or younger than you?
He's younger than me.
He's younger. Okay.
Yeah, he's younger than me.
Wow. So did you feel like you needed to protect him or like shield him or help him when you guys are in the church, or were you guys like stay together a lot in the church?
When we first joined, yeah, we were together a lot, and then when I moved on from elementary school to middle school, we got separated because they have the kids group. They called it the Rainbow Sabbath group or whatever, and then from middle school, the middle school and high school students were all together, and that was the student group. That was called the student group, and during that time was when I actually first learned how to teach the sermons, the subjects. During that early, like I was like 11, 12 years old, and we were going through like a regiment, like we were doing preaching practice. We had our own like course class and everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that from I want to say like 2007, that's when I first started really understanding the nitty and gritty of what we believe in. Because before that, it was I believe in Father, Mother, Ansang Hong, holidays. It was whatever I could absorb in the sermons during the services, and that was pretty much it. But now, as I'm in middle school and in the student group, now we have actual like teachers like teaching us like the course classes, So that was when I first started really understanding or like learning how to teach about what we believe in, and
that was teaching.
It was like whatever to me. I mean,
it's just expected, so you just do it. Kind of robotic. Yeah,
it's like a robotic thing.
Mm-hmm.
Became very robotic. It's a good word to use in this context. That we became very robotic, and yeah, that was an interesting time as well. It was weird. They don't do it now, but at the time, the student group, we were actually allowed to go out like preaching, and that was like weird because you have these like 11, 12-year-olds, 15, 16, and we're trying to like go out preaching, and then that quickly got shut down because a lot of our neighbors and a lot of like people were like, you got these like young kids like going out like trying to recruit people, like, yeah. So they shut that down pretty quick.
Yeah, I don't know how I would respond to that being a
yeah. That was an interesting time. But yeah, around that time, that was the time where it was really taught and banged into everyone's heads that social media was of Satan. That was the time when it was like, if you had a MySpace, you have to delete it. I had a MySpace, growing up like as a kid in middle school.
Yeah.
And I knew of like other members too, like even the older ones that I was pretty cool with that had a MySpace. And I remember even it was like we were like in a group one time. We're just talking. I'm a kid. I'm hanging around the adults, and I just remember someone at the table just getting like rebuked so hard for having a MySpace. And I remember him saying, "Oh, even like later on, like when Twitter came out, the same person said, "Oh, Twitter is of." This is what he said. I'm trying to remember exactly like how it was said, but the Pope has Twitter. That means Satan is on Twitter. The Pope has social media, so why would you want a social media account?
I feel like I remember that also.
The Pope has a Twitter, so why would you want to, Satan is right there.
Right.
So it was that was a big thing back in those days when social media was on the uprise. The church didn't know how big social media would even be, even to now where they're even using social media now to promote their messages and stuff like that. But back then it was like, nope, it was like a foregone conclusion. Like if you want to be a child of God, if you want to go to heaven, delete it. There's no playing around with that. Right. Also around that time, it was ramping up the 10 talent movement. Everybody was involved in that, even children.
Ooh, yeah, true.
Like us in the student group, like deep down inside, I didn't want to admit it at the time, but I kind of felt like a little weird telling people about what I believe in, even as I was in middle school.
Totally normal. I don't think that middle schoolers are supposed to be out evangelizing. I don't think that's like a natural thing for a 12 or 13-year-old to do. Like that's totally normal for you to feel like that.
Like they would tell you, you got to preach to your classmates. You gotta preach to your teachers.
Yep.
And
if you don't, you feel so guilty. That they say that their blood is on your hands.
Yeah, you're exactly.
If you don't like give them a chance to hear the message, what if you're the only chance that person has to hear the message?
And it's your fault.
You just let them walk by, and then it's your fault.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a big message too.
Yeah.
That was huge in what we believed in as it pertained to like preaching. So I'm in middle school. I'm just trying to live. I'm just trying to be a normal student. I have a few friends. But around that time, like I probably only told like one or two people, about like, trying to preach to them and just telling them about the church or whatever. But I didn't want to bother anybody. I didn't want to, it wasn't in me. Like, and that kind of like tortured my spirit. It tortured me because I didn't have like the courage, to preach and, all this other stuff. And yeah, that was crazy because moving into my high school years, during the beginning of high school, I want to say I got pretty rebellious. I was like, again, I'm in this conflict with my inner self. I'm transitioning into the person I'm going to be, as an adult, and I'm still stuck, in conflict with myself all the time, worrying about if I'm, doing God's will, worrying about all this other stuff. I played football in high school for a couple of years. And, I was, being a little rebellious, I got a girlfriend for like the first time and, all that, good stuff as a teenager.
Yeah.
And I would.
Good for you.
So I tried living a more normal like life, but as time got closer, like to around 2011 to 2012, things got really like spicy in the church. I'm gonna say things got really spicy because at the end of I want to say at the end of either 2010 or 2011, there was a huge exodus of people who left the church. There was a huge exodus of people who left even the LA church itself. And these were members like a missionary left. He quote unquote fell away from the church.
You said
So
2011?
yeah, I think it was the end of 2011.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the end of 2011, and things were just getting like I could feel the pressure like ramping up. It's getting close to 2012. I didn't mention this a little earlier, but even as like the one of the student members, I was really close with the student leader. He was he went to Korea like a couple times. We would go on play. We would go early Sunday morning. We'll go to the park and play basketball, and then we would do like preaching practice later on. So I was really close with this guy, and he was very like he was a stout member. He was strong in the faith, and that's how I heard the 2012 prophecy. It was through him, because we were very close, and he one night after like evening worship, we were I was in Zion, I was cleaning, the normal thing members do when after evening worship, they stay around, they clean, and then
you can't leave after like service. You
it's
have to
looked
stay
down
and
upon.
clean.
It's looked down upon if you leave right after. You gotta do.
Just
You gotta,
wasting around.
You can leave, but psychologically you can't.
for the strong like members, like you were mostly staying around. You were cleaning. You were preaching practice, whatever. But you were still there for like an hour or two longer after the evening worship ended.
Mhm.
So it was one of those. It was one of those evenings when the regular members had left, like the run of the mill members, the ones who just came for the services, they just left, and we were in the study room together, and he told me about the 2012 prophecy, and I wasn't surprised. Like, I wasn't surprised when I heard. I was like, oh, okay, well, I've been hearing that the world is gonna end, for who knows how long, and now they have a year to it, I guess, we were always taught like nobody knows a day or time, but it doesn't say year. It doesn't say nobody knows a year. So I remember that. But it was around that same time when there was a huge exodus of members that had left. And like I was mentioning earlier, it was like a missionary, a few deacons, a deaconess, and then other members as well who were in the church for a considerable amount of time. So when that happened, it was like people were leaving. It was either you left or you were staying in the church, and your faith kind of grew from that point. There was only two ways, or like in somewhere in the middle, there were some members who did stay, but they were like, like they were kind of on the fence from that point on. So when that happened, it was like, man, like I've known this missionary, I've known these deacons and deaconesses since I was like a child. Like these people were like the foundation of the LA church. They were the ones recruiting everybody who's here now. Like it was pretty insane. It was pretty insane. Like I still remember that day very clearly because it was a Sabbath day after the morning worship. All the like the student members, the youth, everybody was gathered into the small sanctuary, packed like sardines, and we have our pastor up there telling everybody, yeah, do not speak to these people. They're now of Satan. They deny mother. You know what I mean? So it was.
We had that same exact meeting in Denver. About those same people, because those people were also very brave, and they went on YouTube and they told their story a little bit, and the church did not like that.
Right.
So,
exactly.
all over the world, I think they gathered everybody and like did like damage control.
Yeah,
you
they
know,
did a lot of damage control.
made a lot of rumors about them, said some bad things about them, and we believed them,
Most definitely.
Yeah.
And my grandmother was like besties with one of the
Mm,
deaconesses,
mm.
and she no hesitation cut off all communication. No hesitation.
Wow.
No
Wow.
hesitation. Like in this church, like you're taught who you're told who you can talk to. You're told
Right.
they control everything. You know what I mean? They control everything. So when it was heard that they left, and the reason why they left, oh, it was like, yep, they're of Satan. They're spawns of Satan now.
Right.
They're Satan's
Yep.
workers.
Satan got him.
Yep,
And
Satan
now they're
got them.
working for Satan. Yep.
Nothing we can do about that.
Right.
It's
Right.
prophecy. It's prophecy.
I'm sure she was sad because a lot of members were sort of like mourning them, like
Oh yeah,
almost as if they had died, almost as
there were
if those members
members.
had died and, now they were working for the enemy. So, you know
Mhm.
what I mean? It was a very heavy feeling and like everybody felt sad for them. But
Right.
like you said, cut them off, just
Yeah.
like
No,
nothing.
there were members
Yeah.
that were crying that day. I
Yep.
remember. There were
Yeah.
members that were crying that day because it was like they died. Like
Yeah.
literally, they you really felt that they died
Mm.
spiritually. Like they were gone. There was no way they were gonna come back.
Do you
Um,
think that members look at us the same way now?
Most definitely.
Yeah. That makes
Most
me feel
definitely.
so sad because I
Yeah.
would never want to cause them sadness. I
Right.
want them
Right.
to be happy and free.
Yeah. It's whenever I see a member like at the malls or whatever, I mean, because they like a lot of these people that I still see, like they're preaching in the mall still. Like I've known them for like 10 plus years. Like
Mm.
there's still members in the LA branch that's been there for upwards of 1 decade, almost 2 decades. Like
How do they treat you when they see you?
oh, they just don't want to even make eye contact with me. It's like they
Oh,
it's like they
I
saw
hate
it's
that.
like they saw a ghost when they lock
Why
eyes
can't
with
they,
me. It's like,
why can't they just say hi? How are you? What's
yeah,
up?
that's
What's
what I
going on
wanted.
in your life?
That's what I want. Hey man, how's it going? How's life?
Mhm.
How's everything, going with you? That's what I want to do. But
It's painful. It
yeah,
hurts.
it
Yeah.
definitely is.
Yeah.
Speaking about speaking about death, um, I experienced I got to experience the first time I knew of a member who died in the church.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that was like you keep the Passover. It was like you're safe, you're good to go. You're not going to experience death.
In the beginning, we were taught that
I remember.
nobody in the church would ever die.
Yeah, exactly. So there were two instances, but the one that I was really close to. So going back to when we first joined the church, I met a boy there, and we were like best friends. We were like inseparable. We were so cool with each other. Um, some nights like after Sabbath, we would be like, "Hey, can we go spend the night over, so and so's house?" And we would get to, that was another thing. I had a normal sense of a sense of a normal childhood, and at those times, like I was able to spend the night over this guy's house. He was like my best friend. So we're in middle school together, and he's a year younger than me, so he's one grade below me. We get picked up from school together. My grandmother picks us up, and we're talking about like what we're gonna do when we get to his house. We're going to his house. My grandmother picks us up. We're going over to his house. You're like, yeah, we're gonna build these Legos, or we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do that. We're gonna, after we finish our homework, of course. um but then we get there, and always see like he's like ambulance and like a fire truck, and I see one of the missionaries walking out the house, and this boy's mother had died
Mm.
of she had
Oh,
she had throat cancer,
oh.
and it was so unexpected. Like I started crying at like because this she was a deaconess. She was a
Mm.
deaconess in the church. She was one of the deaconesses who were heavily involved with the children, and she was like my second mother. Like this lady was amazing. I would go over their house. a lot, and she would cook for us. She was Thai, so she owned a Thai food restaurant, and so she would make all this like fire Thai food. Like it was so good. But yeah, like when we got there, we found out that she had passed. I was like, this wasn't supposed to happen. And I see my friend, the mother, the mother's son. I don't want to say his name. He's not in the church anymore, thankfully. But he didn't cry. He was like in shock. But at that time, it was like, yeah, how could this have happened? That was. I want to say that's probably one of the first things that entered my mind that was doubt. I even as like a seventh, eighth grader, that was like really the first doubt that had entered my mind. Like, is this like what? We were told that nobody was supposed to die, right?
Right.
You know,
We were told we were safe.
I remember
nobody
you guys.
dies.
I remember Tony's telling me that, and I was like, I mean, what do you
That's like
guys?
the ultimate dream. You're not gonna die.
Yeah.
Like you're so happy about
It
that.
was that like the world was gonna end right before any of the members died.
Right.
Right.
That's what we
And-
were taught. We were gonna go to heaven alive.
Yeah.
Everybody's taught that nobody's gonna die, and okay, so what then? So that means the world is gonna end in our lifetime.
Wow.
That's what that meant. Nobody's gonna experience death, and that ultimately means that Father is gonna come during our lifetime, and it was that part was crazy. That period of time, like that was
So
crazy.
what did the
'cause
church do when she died?
I don't even remember a funeral.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I don't even like we didn't even have a funeral for this lady. Like this was the sweetest lady.
We had a few funerals in Denver. We did have a few funerals. Some members.
Yeah, I've heard of some members having funerals, but
Yeah.
this one, like her family was in Thailand.
Oh.
She had married a sheriff out here before she even joined the church. Her husband he would go like once a month maybe to church, to attend the Sabbath. So that was like nearing the end of like my best friend. That was like nearing the end of him like going to the church after his mom passed, and he wasn't going often, and then later on, I want to say maybe 5 years ago, his dad passed away. So I actually got to reconnect with him. I want to say right before the pandemic started, so like almost 2 years ago, we reconnected, and it was really cool because he was like my guy. Like we would talk about everything together. He was like it was like us two. We're always doing stuff together. So it was really cool to reconnect with him, and he doesn't really like talking about the church stuff, because in all of us kids who grew up in it, like it's really like, you don't want to you don't even want to talk about it. Like I know a lot of kids that I grew up with, like they just want to forget about it. Like it never it never happened. Like it was that's how it is. And I want to say it was about like 10, 12 of us, back then. As kids who like grew up in the church. But yeah, that was a crazy time.
Wow.
That's when like a little bit of doubt like creeped into my head, and especially during the Exodus, when a lot of members had left in like 2011. That was a crazy time as well.
Did you have a lot of nightmares when you found out about the Doomsday 2012 prophecy?
Oh, it was even way before that.
Yeah.
Way before that. That's
like, did you get anxious, or were you like, okay?
So this is what happened around that time. I had asked the pastor at my branch if I can start going preaching. I was 15. I was 15 at the time. And at the time I had grew up to the height that I am now. I was like 6'2". I was 15, I was 6'2", I looked the part. Like I dressed well, so he allowed me to go preaching. And I remember the first time I ever went preaching. The first time we went over to CSUN, Cal State University Northridge, which I live very close to right now. I'm like walking distance away from there. And I I remember hearing my preaching partner say, "Oh yeah, we're from the Eloise Club," and I look at him like, "No, we're not. We're not from the Eloise Club. We're not from the Elohim Academy." You know, so in my head, no, we're from the Church of God. And like, we're not from, we don't have a club here. What are you talking about, man? Like, in my head, I was thinking,
Front like that.
yeah. So that I kind of just put in the back of my mind and like just locked it away. I didn't really think about it from then on.
Hmm.
So yeah, I just remember like that experience. I just remember him teaching me, yeah, you have to have discernment. You can't preach to these type of people. If you think they look gay, like don't even think about it. If they're smoking a cigarette, don't do it. Like
Oh
don't
yeah,
preach.
no.
So there was like different things where there was like
Once you're out on the field, they're like, here's what we
yeah,
do when we're out.
like we don't preach to these people. We don't, if they look like this, don't preach to them. So we're like, I'm not thinking about the time. We're like, but now thinking back at it, we're like judging these people.
Totally. They're just
Like,
looking for the most productive people that they can bring
yeah,
into their
like
organization. They want the good, cream of the crop to come in and be productive for them for free.
exactly,
That's all.
yeah. So
Ah,
they care a lot about their image,
yes.
So
Mhm.
whoever you bring in, like they want to, like, I'm gonna say it, if they're Caucasian and they're like nice, handsome Caucasian man, they're gonna they're gonna go hard on him to make sure he's like some a leader in within the next year or two, like
Totally.
Yeah.
so
Those are the people they want. Yeah.
they care a lot about their image.
Yeah.
Um, so I went preaching. I started going preaching. My grandmother was like proud of me. Like all the members, like, oh yeah, that's so cool. Like, cause I was the only student. I was the only like high school student that was allowed to go preaching.
You're giving a good
Yeah,
example.
I was like giving all this like praise, like, oh, you're such a good example, brother Jordan. You're doing all this great work for the church. You're making mother happy. So I'm like, I'm on this in terms of like how I feel in my faith, like I'm at a high right now. I'm like, oh, I'm
Totally.
doing good. I'm like preaching. I had like bore fruit.
It gives
I,
you energy. It makes you feel like alive,
yeah, yeah.
passionate.
So
Hmm.
I like bore fruit. I bore my first fruit when going to one of the colleges over here, and I, I the member, he got baptized and he found out I was 15. He was like, wait, what? He was like,
Hmm.
what? You're 15? Like, no way. Um, and then we went, and then I was allowed to, during the summer of 2012, I was allowed to go on my first mission trip, my first short-term mission trip. And this was like, I'm in summer break, I was able, my grandmother was able to give me the money to go on the, because it was like $200, $300, paying for food and gas or whatever. Um, I was able to go on my first mission trip to Fresno. And keep in mind, like, I have never really been out of my little bubble here in LA. Like, I've never traveled, you know, I probably only gone as far as south as San Diego. Never really went anywhere. So we're here in Fresno. It was my first experience of like a house church,
Hmm.
because I'm coming from the first LA branch where we're full on building. At this time, we have like 400, 500 plus members in the church. So from when I first joined to like at that time in like 2012, it was a huge growth. There was a lot of growth. So we're doing the mission trip. We're in this house church, and we're preaching like from 8 a.m. onwards, and we have like a lunch break at like 12, and then we're preaching all the way to like 6 p.m., 7 p.m. And that was a crazy experience. I remember going, like, we were preaching in Fresno, but every night we were commuting to Bakersfield, which was 2 hours away. So every night and every morning we were commuting 2 hours. This is for 2 weeks. We were staying at we were only the Korean deacon and the deaconess were staying at the house church, but they didn't have enough room for us to stay. So we commuted 2 hours to Bakersfield to stay at a member's house, and then 2 hours in the morning. So it was really intense. It was really, really intense. Just I remember when we preached to when one of the members preached to somebody, they literally got into the van and were on the way to the house church, and they got baptized in the bathtub. Like it was a female getting into a van with a group of like a bunch of like mostly men in this van that fits like 8 people. It was a crazy.
Women, be careful. Stop getting into vans with people.
I mean, we had like a couple sisters in the van, but it was like, damn, she really did this. Like, she really got into the van with us, and we're all like all super happy, you know, or love bombing her.
Bear good fruit.
Yeah. So also, that was that trip was the first time we heard Mother's voice on the phone. Because she actually called. She called when we were sitting it was a Sunday. We just got to the house church, and we were like, you know, coming up with a plan, like where we're gonna preach and all this stuff. And all of a sudden, I just remember, yeah, brothers and sisters, Mother called us. You know, she's on the phone. I got, you know, there's members in there crying their eyes out, like, you know, and me, I'm not a crier. I'm not very much of an emotional person. The only time where I really cried was when my son was born. Like, someone turned on the faucet, and I just let it all out. That's like really the only situation where I'm really a crier. So I'm like, at that time, like in the back of my head, I'm like, man, like Mother, like this lady really has an effect on all these people. And it was like in the back of my head, I was thinking like that, like she really has this effect on these people. Like, they're crying their eyes out. And it's like the most interesting, because it was my first experience hearing her voice. You know, I never got to visit Korea or anything like that, but it was like my first time. So it was like a weird feeling. Like
You feel like you're Moses hearing the voice of God.
Yeah, that's how it was.
That's what they compare it to. Yeah, that's so interesting. Like going up to receive the tablets and hearing God's voice.
Most definitely. That's how it was, you know. And once she gave us her blessing or whatever, put that in quotations. Once she gave us her blessing, it was game on. Like, we were so motivated to start the mission trip. It was in one perspective, it was a cool bonding moment with a lot of those members. Like, I grew close to a lot of those members.
Yeah.
You know, we built great friendships through those times. Right. And
yeah, but then when you see them in the mall, they ignore you.
Yeah, now it's like,
and that's different. The hard part, because you're like, what? I spent 24 hours a day with you, you know, especially on those short-term preaching trips. Like you said, you get bonded, you know, you're like, it's like it's an amazing, strong bond.
With 3-4 people, we're sleeping in sleeping bags.
Yes.
Did you ever go anywhere like far with anybody like that? I don't remember.
Oh, yeah, we went to Kansas City 2 times. Yeah, I went to Kansas City 2 times.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, we went to Wyoming a lot, but Wyoming is pretty close. Yeah, I didn't tell you. Are you crazy?
Yeah, I don't remember any of that.
Yeah, that was a big thing. Like, if you were going on a mission trip, like, before the mission trip, we fasted for like 3 days.
Oh, yeah, to ask for blessings.
Yeah, to ask for blessings. And I only lasted like a day and a half.
Oh, yeah. I never lasted 3 days.
I was like, nah, man.
And they're like, have fun. Go be sleep deprived for 2 weeks.
Yeah, preaching a whole day is really, really hard.
I remember the shoes I had at the time, because in Fresno, it was in the summer. And in Fresno, it gets really hot. It's like desert. It gets really hot. And so I remember the soles, or the bottom of my shoe, like, was melted, because it was like 110 plus
Oh, they both praise that though, because they say
Yeah.
that's like Father's sacrifice, because his shoes were worn out too. So you're
Yeah.
just like Father.
Exactly. And I mean, I didn't bear any fruit in Fresno, but it was like we were going to the campuses and it was just over and over and
You
over.
feel
Like,
like as a group, you're so excited, like, oh, somebody
yeah,
else bore fruit, so you bore fruit. It's
exactly.
very
Yeah, that's how it is. Exactly. And I noticed the difference in the preaching on a short-term mission trip than regular preaching. Because now that we're on a short-term mission trip, we were pushing like the seal of God subject. Like we were not just teaching about mother, but we were like going right into the seal of God. Like if you a World War III is around the corner, like we were preaching this to people. We were like World War III is around the corner. You need the seal in order to be saved. North Korea this, North Korea that. We were like going hard on these people. Like it was a notch up of what we were used to doing, like used to preaching. Back at home, it was more lax. It was like, hey, you believe in God the Mother? Have you heard about God the Mother? And you would show them like 3 or 4 verses. But on the mission trip team, it was like a whole different story. We were
it's
going
more
all in.
urgent.
It was
Well, I
more
think it's
urgent.
because they want to get like those foundational members before they leave,
Yes.
so that they
Yeah.
can plant them in there, and then from there they start just popping out.
Exactly. So I saw the Fresno branch. I saw them grow from like a house. We would go back and do other short-term mission trip. Like we were focused on Fresno.
And the whole
Like
time they're making videos, guys. They're like
yeah,
recording it all on video. People
exactly.
getting baptized in a bus.
Yeah,
Was it like this?
real stuff. No,
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 no dancing. This
no,
is
we
like
didn't dance.
serious
Yeah,
videos. These are
yeah, we.
serious videos.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. That was a pretty crazy experience.
So what
I
year did you finally leave? Can I ask that?
I left in 2018.
Wow.
Yeah, so from when I from between high school and when I left, it's when um so during my last year of high school, I actually isolated myself because the world was ending soon. It was
Mhm.
2012. Summer of 2012, I quit football and I just wanted to preach. I quit playing
Mm.
high school football and I went into homeschooling.
Mm.
So because I was so like scared and like paranoid of being around the kids in high school.
Being
I was
tempted
being
and
the temptations, all
mhm.
that stuff. Like I was so over with high. Like I was done. Like I didn't want to go to school. I
What's
did it
the
like
point if the world is
what's the point?
ending?
Yeah, like
Right,
what's the point? Like why I mean
right.
so there were but right before I started the homeschooling, I wasn't getting good grades. I wasn't doing too good in school because I just wasn't focused on it. I'm like, why should I type thing. So I did homeschooling, and I would just want to preach. Did my independent studies, and I just want to preach. So I didn't get a prom. I didn't do graduation. I didn't graduate on
Mm,
on stage. I just got my diploma in the mail. That's
mhm,
that was my high school graduation. I
At least
got
you
my
graduated. That's good.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That was a good part. They did have an on stage type thing, but it was on a Saturday, so
Right.
I
Can't
you know
go.
I couldn't go. So I didn't have that regular like high school life at all. And then afterwards, I joined the military, and when I joined the military, that was keep in mind these are like the first. This is like really the first time where I'm like missing a Sabbath because I'm in boot camp. I can't go to church like.
Is that allowed? I don't understand how that works.
So with the military, it was my own decision. Everybody was telling me not to go. The pastor was telling me, no, don't go. Like,
Mm.
mother doesn't want her children fighting wars, That's what it was. It was everybody was trying to convince me not to go. And my grandmother was definitely convincing me not to go, understandably so.
Right.
And I said, F it. Like, fuck it. I'm just going to go. I'm just going to do it. Because at the time, I didn't have a fervor to go to college. I mean, I understood that even at that time, I'm gonna have to do something with my life. This is after 2012. This is after 2012 had happened. I'm gonna have to do something with my life, like, because with 2012, nothing happened. The world didn't end. The world is still here. 2013 comes around. We're just, a lot of people had actually left because of that. But we're still going through our normal run-of-the-mill Sabbath or day preaching. It's just an endless cycle. 2014 comes around, and they're talking about the year of Jubilee. They're talking about yeah, this is the year. The year of Jubilee is when the slaves go back to their home country. So we're like, are we doing this again? We're doing this again.
Right.
In the back of my mind, I'm not trying to show this, but I'm like, we're doing this again. All right, we're doing.
It's like all stacking up in your mind, like all these little
Yes, all these little
adding
things
up.
are
Right.
adding up little by
That's
little.
like a common theme that I'm hearing you guys all kind of say is that the 2012 happened, and then with the year of Jubilee thing.
Yeah, that was the theme of 2014.
It's like, what is happening right now?
You guys were like, I don't want to do this all over again.
Yeah, we're exhausted by then.
I know.
We're like exhausted mentally.
So exhausted.
I'm just like, and then at the end of 2014, I'm like, man, the world's not gonna end. I'm like, the world's not gonna end. So I'm like, let me just, let me do something with my life. I'm joining the military. Even though I was told not to, I was just at the fuck it phase. Like, fuck it. I'm just gonna do what I want to do. So I go in the military, and during I finish boot camp. My family comes out. I'm super stoked. And I go to AIT. I'm in my job training in Virginia. At this time, it was right around Passover, actually. So I had to message my missionary, like, hey, how do I keep Passover by myself? So he gave me like all these instructions, like a page full of instructions on what to do. And to be quite honest, I didn't do a lot of that stuff. I was like, let me just get my grape juice. Let me just get the whatever bread they're telling me to get. And they were giving me like, they were trying to say like, you have to get this specific grape juice. You have to get this specific bread. Like, it was like, what? I don't even have access to that stuff. I'm on a military base. Like, I can't even go out. So a lot of the stuff I couldn't do. But of course, I told them
you did your best. I'm sure that you did your top best.
I did my best. But I mean, at the time, I was keeping service by myself, but I was like, a lot of the times, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go hang out with my friends. I didn't even keep service a lot of the times. I was kind of like, this is what it feels like.
Over it.
This is what it feels like to live like a normal life, kind of.
Finally being exposed to the outside world because you've never really been out.
Yeah, it was my first exposure on my own.
Right.
And so after AIT in Virginia, I come visit LA. I marry the girl that, this is a whole nother story in itself, and maybe some other time I'll share it.
Yeah, definitely.
But I ended up marrying the girl that I met in church, in the LA church. I ended up marrying her, and then I was stationed in Washington State. I was like 45 minutes south of Seattle. So we moved up to Seattle, to Washington, and that's when I start going to church again. I start I meet all the members there. But I was so exhausted with everything I was doing in the military. Like there was actually a period of time of, I want to say like 3-4 months where I just didn't go. I just didn't have the energy like to drive 45 minutes to an hour up to church every single third day and Sabbath day. My wife was doing it. She was strong in the faith at the time. And she would always, like pray for me. At the time I still believed or whatever, but I grew like this shameful feeling in myself. Like I don't even like it's weird when you don't go for a while. Like you said, like there's a part of you that still doesn't want to show your face. Like because you're gonna feel all that judgment on you. So when the feast time roll around, I actually do go back, and I think it was like the autumn feast or something where we're like preaching. So I'm like, oh well, I guess I'm back into it. I'm back in the flow. Like it
feels like you're either 100% in or you're not.
Exactly. So it's interesting because when I was in that stage of just being exhausted, I mean, I was going, but I wasn't really there mentally. And my group leader there, he asked me, like, it was a Sabbath. He was like, "Hey, Jordan, let's go preaching," and I said, "Nah." I actually told him no. That was like the only first time I ever said like no to something like that.
That's unheard of. Yeah.
I was like, nah. I just wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling it. So I was gone for like a few months, and then I came right back into it. And then I'm going full on. I'm like 110. I'm 110% in. I'm preaching again. I'm doing preaching practice. I'm teaching new members again. So I'm like back in the flow. And then I get out the military. I move back down to LA. And within a couple weeks, they make me a group leader. I'm a group leader in the LA church and this is like one of the main churches in America. And I'm a youth group leader, the youth group, which was from the ages of 18 to 30. So I have 25 members under my belt, under me. And this is how it happened. So the deacon that was my group leader when I moved back to LA, one preparation night, one Friday night, he called me. He was like, "Hey, brother, I'm actually getting sent out to this, this house church." And pastor called him and said, "Yeah, call it, Jordan, and yeah, he's going to be the new group leader for your group." And we were called the Soldiers of Melchizedek. That was our group name. And yeah, he called me up. He was like, "Yeah, he told me the day before I was actually starting to be a group leader. Like I didn't like, what do I what do I do type thing. Like I had no clue. I had somewhat of a clue, like of what to do, but I was like,
group
man,
leader
this
is like the highest. It's like a highest leader. It's like a group leader, and then underneath that you have like a lot of members.
Yes.
And then you have like a unit leader, and like a group leader might even like be in control of a unit leader.
Yes.
And like their members too. It's like this whole chart, and everybody has members, but like a group leader is like the top leader, and it's like the most pressure.
Yeah, you have a lot. I was introduced to a whole nother world when it came to being in the church. This was like, like crazy. Like I'm a leader over like 25 members, and out of those 25 that are on my roster, about 10 or 11 of them come every Sabbath, every third day, and they're strong. They're pretty strong members. So I'm thinking like, man, what do we read in the morning? Because after in between every service, like you're with your group. Like there's no.
You have to make a curriculum and a plan for them and keep them busy all day long. You can't let them out of your sight.
And I'm like 21. Like,
and you're like eating lunch together. Like you don't let them sit with other members. Like everybody has to be together as a group. It's crazy when you look back at it, huh?
So crazy. I'm like 21 years old, and I got members who are like older than me, obviously, but they were pretty cool. I usually in that type of situation, you would get some resentment or something, right? You would like, why is he grouped? But I didn't get any of that because they know I've been in this church for a long time. They know I know my stuff. Like I had completed all 5 sermon books. There's
a reason why you're a group leader. Like you had done all these good things to put you up to a good status with the members.
You can't become a group leader if you don't know all the 50 subjects. If you haven't borne fruit, like
members have to like you.
Exactly. Tony, were you a group member?
A group leader?
A group leader?
One time I was, and I really hated it. Yeah, I really hated it.
Yeah, a lot goes into it.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot. So for a good,
because then you have to have presentations, and you have to like explain how your members are doing. If only 11 are coming for service, where's the rest of them? Why aren't they coming? You're responsible for their faith.
Exactly. You're their like shepherd.
Yeah.
Like literally, you're their shepherd. Literally, like you're telling them where to go. Like
Mhm.
after service, we're gonna go in this room and we're gonna watch this video. So be
Mhm.
there. You gotta be on time.
Mhm.
And
You're
yeah,
rebuking people
I'm
too.
rebuking people. I'm like,
Oh
I didn't like
yeah.
that though. I did not
I
like
didn't
that.
like that either. No.
I rarely rebuked.
Yeah, me
I probably
too.
like only like once or twice did I ever rebuke somebody. And even like my rebuking wasn't like harsh. It was like
Right.
I'm telling you how it is, and whether you like it or not, this is how it is, bro. Like
Right. Right.
that's how I was. And with becoming a group leader, there was so much it was so many new things. Like I had like so we were on a rotation who was cooking for all the members. So each group, so in on the Sabbath, you have a lunch and you have dinner. So there's a group cooking lunch and there's a separate group cooking dinner. So we were on a rotation. So I want to say like maybe once a month or once every a month and a half, my group was chosen to cook dinner. And there's so much that goes into, you have to get the funds, you have to make sure everybody's contributing like at least like $20. Like if we're gonna feed everybody in this church, I'm gonna need at least like $350 to $400 every time
Mhm.
because we got
Yep.
to go to
It's a
restaurant.
lot of people.
Yeah, we got to
Mhm.
go. We got to go. My favorite thing was making meatball sandwiches.
Mm.
Man, you couldn't tell me anything.
It was good food. We weren't like
Yeah,
making no like sloppy food. We were making a good food.
yeah.
Huh?
So
Yeah.
we got some like hot like crispy bread. We would make the meatballs. We would get the mozzarella cheese. We'll make a salad on the side. Like that was my thing. That I would do like with my group. We would do that. We made burritos one time. It was pretty cool, but the pressure that goes into it, like
Yeah.
the Kwanzaa of the church was like would always come up to me like, is it ready? Like, are you guys ready? You guys have the funds? You know, at the time, my son at the time, he was like barely born. He was like 1 years old, 2 years old. He said, I'm running around doing all these things, the cooking, like the cooking, whenever we did it. I'm going preaching every night. Um, I'm, doing all this stuff with the members. We're getting together on Sunday. We're doing preaching practice. We're going out preaching. Like I'm like, it was really hard to like spend any time with like my family. So even throughout that time, like there was like a rocky relationship between me and my wife, and you know trying to balance out like, okay, spending family time and then doing things for the church. So that like kind of put a lot on me at such a young age, and combined with the fact that as a group leader, I was new to like every month we had like a monthly report type thing. We will make a PowerPoint every single month. And the things that were shown were who's tithing, who's preaching, and who's attending. Those were the three main points. So as a group leader, I record attendance. I record everybody's attendance.
Yeah.
I'm because all this is going to the head office. All this is going to straight to Korea. All this data. So I'm recording who's here, who's late, right?
Oh
Not
yeah,
only
there's a
that,
super late.
not only that, but the first time I had to do it was the first time that we had one of those monthly meetings. We were supposed to check who's tithing. I go up to this one deacon who's also a group leader. I'm like, hey, so how do we find out who's tithing? Do we just ask? Do we just go up and ask him? Just go off the honor system or something like that? And he was like, no, you just look. You just look in your envelope. No, he was like just plain and simple. Yeah, just look in their envelope. Like it's not a big deal.
You know what he's talking about? Envelope, Lindsay? You look confused.
Yeah, like at church where they're like,
So there's the tithing envelope,
And
and
everybody has their own with their own name on it.
yeah,
I think maybe we talked about that. Even the babies.
even the baby. So
even the babies have an envelope.
Oh yeah, as soon as you're born. As soon as you're baptized, I guess. Yeah.
so everybody has a tithing envelope, has their name, and when you pull the paper out, the envelope, it folds like three times. So you open it up, and you see like there's a graph, there's like a chart of like month and like the dates that the Sabbath dates that they provided funds that they gave money, and it's supposed to be 10%. So it's 10%. So I'm like looking at everybody's envelope, and I'm like, oh, this is 10%. This is 10% of his income. I'm like thinking about like, oh, this is how much you make, like, you know.
It's so personal. Like you're
It's
able to see
personal.
that. It's so personal, and you feel bad going into their envelope, but you're like, I need this
Oh,
information.
so that's based off of the honor system, right? Or do you have to
What?
like provide pay stubs?
It's recorded. It's you.
Well, I mean, you give 10%, but like if I open somebody's envelope and it said they only gave $5 this month, then I know that's not 10%, and I
Yeah,
know their faith isn't good. So I'm gonna say, oh, they didn't tithe.
yeah. So you mark it down as they did in tithe.
Yeah.
Oh. But how do you? But did like when they joined, do they give you their bank statements or like their pay
No.
stubs and stuff?
No,
They
no,
just
no,
have to
no.
make an set. Like they have to tithe enough where it's not fishy.
So as a group leader, you're
Usually you're tithing like to
yeah,
the penny.
yeah, most
Yeah.
definitely.
Or you're
As
rounding up. We would round up.
as a group leader, you're supposed to know about your members, like you know
Uh,
what they do for work, like all this
Yeah.
stuff. So
Oh
if you
yeah, you
know
know everything.
if you know what they do for work and they're
That's
tithing like
true.
$5-10, like come on, bro, like
Right. And
you're
then
not.
you have to tell them, and then you have to talk to them
Yeah.
and be like, why aren't you tithing fully? Let's study about tithing. It's like, this is so awkward.
I don't know how you did that. That is so not your
I
personality.
I
I
felt
know,
so
it's like
like
you dissociate, right? Like you're a different person. You're your cult person.
Yeah.
Jordan, I feel like we can have you on for like 700 episodes.
oh for
Yeah.
sure. It's so much. It's so
Do
much
you
to get
want to come on again?
for sure. I want to say what I just shared is like, being a group leader. There were that's what kind of like opened my eyes to see that this was like a business.
Right.
Like me being a group leader, like the church shouldn't have made me a group leader because I was able to see like this is like a business.
Yeah.
We're making monthly reports. We're keeping track. We're
True.
keeping track of who's giving money, how much money, who's attending, like all this. It was so like
Structured.
articulate, structural. Like it was so strict, like down to the T. Like everything had to be in order. There was a specific order on how everything had to be, and that just didn't seem like God really wants it like this. Like
Right.
really, really.
I always felt like, wouldn't God know if I'm at service or not? Like, why do you need to take attendance? Wouldn't God know? But when you ask them, they say it's because everything recorded on earth is also recorded in heaven,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Whatever is written on earth is written
It's
in
written.
heaven.
Yep.
That's why everything has to be reported, has to be recorded, and all that.
Yeah, it's very, very, very extreme, super
Yeah.
extreme, I would say.
I'm really glad that you were able to see that once you were a group
Oh yeah.
leader. To see
Once I
that.
saw that, another year went by, and then I just got like burnt out. Just the everything with just being a group leader. So I stepped down from being a group leader, and I just up to the time when I left, I was kind of there, but I wasn't there. Like I was mentally checked out.
What was it like to step down? Just really quick, I'm curious.
That
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 sounds
was like
terrifying.
it was understandable for myself and and for others because I wanted to spend more time with like my son.
Right.
And there were times on the Sabbath where because they have like the children's section and they had like where the mommies would be. And I was just talking to my wife about this not too long ago. We were like during the Sabbath, I had my group watching a movie and I just stepped out. I just stepped out the room and I was like, let me just go chill with my wife and son for a little bit. They're in the mommy's area when they're with their children. So I would start going there a lot. Like just I would get away from everybody. I was able to spend time with my son, able to chill and talk to my wife. I was like the only male, like I was like the only like husband going over to do that. I was going over. I was just,
And it probably was not. I mean, they probably didn't like that.
they didn't like that too much. I mean, there was even one time where I was teaching a new member. I was doing like a few studies with him, and then we were done, and then I had left him by himself, which is a complete no-no. It's like And then I had got rebuked for that. Even like the missionary rebuked me for that. But I had left him by himself, and as I was getting rebuked for it, I was like, this is a grown person. This is a grown ass man. Like, does he really have to be like do I have to be with, like, I know the church teaches you have to be with them. Like, you can't leave them alone, but just logically thinking, like, do I really have to be with this person 24/7? Like, I
Right. I
kind
have
of
something
want
else to
to.
do. I need to do something. I need to be with
Like,
my kid.
yeah, I want to go see my
Yeah.
son. So
Yeah.
that's what kind of pushed me to like step down. And I mean, it was kind of humbling too, because people saw you as a group leader and now you're not, so
Yeah.
something's wrong with your faith type thing.
Right.
And I remember one instance, I had grew like some facial hair or something. I had grew like this little thing right here,
You rebel.
and I had it was like maybe a month or two before I had left. But like one brother was like, haha, you have facial hair, like just joking at it, like, and I was just like, yeah, I'm going to hell, yeah, haha, because I have facial hair, duh. Like,
Mhm.
Wow.
because it was like the brothers couldn't have facial hair, like that was not
Mhm.
it was not looked, it was frowned upon.
Right.
So yeah, at the end of that, it was just like, yeah, like the just trying to come to a conclusion now. It was the autumn feast of 2018. It was the Feast of Trumpets, and it was the first. It was like the first. It was the first day of the Feast of Trumpets. It was because after that, then you have the evening and 5 a.m. worship, right? But that day, I just didn't even show up. Like my grandmother was calling me, my wife was calling me. Like, why? I was like, I just don't feel like going. I'm not feeling well right now. Um, and yeah, I that was the last time I ever went, or that was like that was the Sabbath before that was the last time I ever went, and that was the end of it. Like, from that point on, it was like a dark. I was like isolated. I isolated myself. I was doing bad at work. Like, I was down in the dumps. Like, I was just. It was a really weird time for me. Like, I just ripped off a band-aid. Like, you know, just ripped
Your
it off.
whole
I just ripped it.
childhood.
Yeah, so I was like, is
Whole
something gonna
life.
happen to me? Something,
Mhm.
is something gonna happen to me? Am I gonna get struck by lightning, or is something bad
In
gonna
a
happen?
car accident. Yeah.
Yeah, something. And it, you know, I want to say it was like fall of 2018 until like April of 2019 where I put out my first video, and that did wonders for me because I finally got to release all this like tension and this dark buildup of the from the time I left, between the time I left to the time I released my first video. It was not a healthy time for me. Like this, I can't even really remember a lot of it,
Mhm.
you know.
Right.
But
Mhm.
once I started speaking out and like helping people and like looking at other videos, there's more I can go into, but I can go into next time. But it definitely helped me. And
I think that would be a great like second part to this is coming back and talking about like that process.
Afterward. Mhm.
oh,
And
most definitely.
healing.
You've done so much after that. I
Mhm.
think we should do a second episode and definitely come back to that because I feel like I also have a bunch of other questions to ask you too.
Yeah, for
For
sure.
sure. I think that's perfect. So this episode is like his whole journey of, his life in the church. And then the next episode could be about healing. Does that sound good to
Yeah,
you, Jordan?
yeah, that does. That,
Yeah,
that's
Yeah.
because I still
great.
have like 2 hours worth of stuff I want to ask
Me
you.
too. Me too.
Yeah,
my
there's a lot
husband,
to unpack.
my husband got
Does it watch your YouTube videos?
uh, the first one I ever put out, I haven't rewatched that one ever. But the ones the group ones that we do, like the Zoom meetings that I have on my
Yeah.
channel, like I've rewatched those. Those are pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Those are fun.
Yeah.
As an experiment, you should go back and rewatch your first
Yeah.
YouTube video and just see how you feel and like how far you've come or,
Oh, for
whatever.
sure. For
Those
sure. For
videos
sure.
are awesome. I'm
Jordan.
I
excited.
Do you want me to put a link to your YouTube videos on this
Yeah.
episode? Or no?
Excited to hear about the YouTube world and that whole thing. That's gonna
Yeah.
be cool.
That
All right, guys.
lots to
Yeah.
unpack. Lots to unpack.
Yeah. Stay tuned for our next episode. 2022, guys. This is our year.
Woo, it's our year.
It's
Thank
the
you, Jordan.
year.
We're going
Our
to talk
year of
soon
healing.
again for part 2.
For sure.
All right.
How should we end this episode, though? I feel like it should have an ending.
Boom, baby.
Boom, baby. What should we talk about right before
To be
we end?
continued.
To be continued.
Be-
All right, Jordan, we're going to talk to you next time.
All right, for sure. You
We're
guys
going
have
to
a good
talk to
one.
you soon about healing. Can you end it with boom?
Boom, baby.
Yeah. Boom, baby.
Bye.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Bye.